You never quite forget the first time your own child makes you feel like dead weight, like you've outlived your usefulness. Mine came on a Tuesday after a trip to the doctor, just one of those routine checkups, nothing dramatic. I had a little slip getting out of the car, nothing broken, just bruised pride. But by dinner, my son Eric had already started the conversation. We were sitting at my kitchen table, same one I'd scrimped and saved for when Eric was 6, and we needed a dining set that wasn't 3 folding chairs and a milk crate. He was stirring his tea absent-mindedly, tapping the spoon like it owed him money. "Mom, you live alone. You don't drive anymore. What if something happens again?" he said, with that fake, gentle tone I recognized from when he was a teenager trying to borrow the car. I laughed, honestly laughed, because I thought he was being protective. I thought, God, he's finally acting like the man I raised. But he wasn't finished. I've looked into some places, comfortable ones. You'd have your own room, TV, bingo nights, a nurse on call. That's when I paused. I felt it then, like a slow leak in a tire. The air in the room just went. My tea went cold in my hand. "Eric, you want to put me in a nursing home?" He blinked like I'd missed the compliment. "Not a home, Mom. It's called assisted living now. You'd be around people your own age. You wouldn't be alone." Let me tell you, nothing reminds you how invisible you've become like someone acting like companionship is a favor. Like your loneliness is just an item on their to-do list. I should have said no then and there. But I didn't, because in my gut, I thought maybe he was just scared for me. Maybe he really believed it would be better. But I saw it in his eyes when I hesitated, a flicker of relief. Like he'd finally found a solution to a problem that had been nagging at him. A week later, I was packing. Not much, just the essentials, he said. He'd already booked the room. "Just try it for a month," he smiled, handing me a folded list of what to bring. No pressure. And would you believe the house still smelled like his favorite cereal from when he was 10? As I packed, I caught sight of an old photo on the bookshelf, Eric at graduation, and me right beside him, beaming in a too-tight navy blazer I bought on layaway. I picked up that frame and held it. My chest tightened. I wasn't sick. I wasn't helpless. I was 66, not 96. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being mom and had quietly become the problem. The facility wasn't terrible. I'll give him that. Clean, polite staff, a nice enough window view. But it wasn't home. Not by a long shot. I didn't say much that first week. I just watched. Watched the way my roommate's kids visited once every few months. Watched the way the nurse flinched every time someone pressed the call button like she was already apologizing for being too busy. And then came the day I overheard Eric on the phone with his wife. "Thin walls in that place. Once Mom settles in," he whispered, "we can finally redo the kitchen. She always said I'd inherit the house." I sat there, clutching my mug of lukewarm cocoa, and it hit me like a freight train. He didn't put me here because he was worried about me. He put me here because he wanted the house. My house. The house I built from the ground up after his father left, when I was working 2 jobs and still found time to cook, clean, and help with math homework I barely understood. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every sacrifice I ever made, every coat I didn't buy, every promotion I turned down to make it to his soccer games. Every time I told myself he was a good kid, just tired, just busy. And by sunrise, I'd made my decision. He wanted the house? Good. Let him come looking for it, because the next time he stepped into my driveway, there'd be a sold sign in the yard. And I'd be watching him from the balcony of my brand new condo, glass of champagne in hand, deed to my new future tucked safely in my purse. The moment I walked into the lawyer's office, I knew exactly what I was about to do. And I didn't flinch once. "Mrs. Gaines," he greeted, glancing up from behind his desk, confused but polite. "Are you all right?" I smiled, a calm, practiced smile. Oh, I'm just here to ruin someone's inheritance plan. I don't think he knew whether to laugh or call security. A week before, I was lying in a twin-size bed in a facility I didn't choose, sipping on watery soup with someone else's name sharpied onto the bowl. Now, I was sitting across from my family lawyer, purse in lap, listing out steps like a woman on a mission. Sell the house? He repeated. Cash. No listing signs. Quiet sale. I already found a buyer, I said, sliding him the business card of a lovely couple I met in church 2 years ago who'd once joked about buying a home like mine if it ever went up for sale. They thought I was joking when I called. They'll be moving in 2 months from now. He blinked. And? Your son? Oh, he'll find out, I said. Eventually. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out a sealed envelope. And I'd like to revise my will. Take him out. All of it. The lawyer paused. Are you sure? I gave him a look, only a mother who's cleaned up vomit at 2 a.m. and worked 40 years without a single vacation could give. I gave him everything he has. This house, it was supposed to be a gift, not a reward for sending me away. By the time I left that office, the paperwork was in motion, and I didn't go back to the nursing home. Instead, I booked 3 nights at a bed and breakfast near the coast. Nothing fancy, just clean air, warm sun, and fresh crab cakes. While Eric thought I was still adjusting to my new life in the home, I was sipping wine on a porch swing, watching waves crash. I didn't call. I didn't text. Let him wonder. Let him stew. Because the day he finally drove up to his future home with his entitled wife in the passenger seat, he'd find strangers moving in, and I'd be 3 floors up watching the show unfold, every bit of it, with the best seat in the house. The thing about revenge is, it's best served quiet. No screaming, no scenes, just the sound of car tires rolling into a driveway that no longer belongs to you. It was a sunny Thursday when Eric showed up. His wife, Madeline, was in the passenger seat wearing her usual oversized sunglasses and that smug, self-satisfied look that made my jaw tighten. I saw them through binoculars, not to spy, but to witness. Every little reaction. They were in a gleaming black SUV, the same one I helped him co-sign for before retirement. A decision I regretted the minute he drove off without a thank you. From my new condo 2 buildings away, with a perfect line of sight to my former house, I leaned on the balcony rail and waited. He got out first, keys in hand. Yes, keys, still had the old set. Of course he did. He walked up to the front door and didn't even knock, just shoved it open like a man claiming his prize. Only the door didn't budge. Locked. He jiggled it. Knocked harder. Then turned around with that confused look only someone completely unprepared for reality can wear. Madeline stepped out. Is someone inside? That's when the new owners, Dennis and Paula, stepped out. Middle-aged couple, sweet as pie. I made sure to tell them everything before they bought it. No surprises. Dennis looked confused but polite. Can I help you? Eric blinked like he couldn't compute what was happening. This is my mother's house. Dennis chuckled, not unkindly. Not anymore. Madeline stepped back. Her face dropped. What do you mean? She lives in a nursing home. I did, I whispered from my balcony. Past tense, sweetie. Eric stormed back to the car. He pulled out his phone, and that's when it rang. Me. He hesitated, then answered. Mom? His voice cracked, like a boy realizing the rules had changed. I see you made a visit, I said, sipping my lemonade. Hope you like the new paint. They're going for a coastal vibe. Where are you? He asked, panicked. I smiled, even though he couldn't see me. Oh, just nearby, watching from above, like the ghost of your conscience. You sold the house. No, darling, I said slowly. I reclaimed it. You gave me no choice. He sputtered. You had no right. I had every right. You had assumptions, and you made the mistake of thinking I wouldn't outthink you. Then I added just for effect, you might want to check the mailbox before you go. The lawyer's letter should be arriving today. Spoiler alert, you're not in the will anymore. Dead silence. I could practically hear his ego shattering through the speaker. Then a twist, one I didn't expect. Madeline yanked the phone from him. "Mrs. Gaines, this is insane. We're family." I chuckled. "You remember that now?" She lowered her voice. "Eric may have handled things poorly, but surely you don't want to leave your only son with nothing?" I leaned back on the balcony chair. Funny thing about sons who treat their mothers like burdens, they tend to end up with exactly what they gave. As I hung up, I saw Eric slam the car door. Madeline stood frozen, eyes wide, hands on her hips like she couldn't believe what just happened. And me? I leaned back, stretched out my legs, and smiled. The view from here was perfect. Let me tell you, there's nothing like inviting your ungrateful family over, not for reconciliation, but for closure. A week after the driveway incident, Eric sent me a string of texts. First angry, then panicked, then desperate. "Mom, we need to talk. This isn't like you. Can we meet, please?" So I invited him. And Madeline. And just for flair, my two nieces, Clara and Janine, who'd always stood by me like daughters when my own son didn't. I told them, "Dinner's on me. Come hungry for food and the truth." I set the dining table in my condo just right. Candles, wine glasses, fresh flowers. There's something poetic about confronting the people who discarded you over roast chicken and Cabernet Sauvignon. Eric arrived first. He looked smaller somehow, like life had kicked the arrogance out of him. "Mom?" He tried to hug me. I stepped back. "We'll talk when everyone's seated." Madeline shuffled in next, awkward and overdressed, probably expecting a trap. Good, let her. Once everyone was seated, I raised my glass. To honesty, long overdue. Clara and Janine exchanged glances but said nothing. They'd been briefed. Eric cleared his throat. "Mom, I admit we mishandled things, but selling the house, that was extreme." I nodded slowly. "So was calling me a burden." He flinched. Madeline jumped in, all sugary charm. "You know he didn't mean it that way. He was just overwhelmed." "Madeline," I said, "he had options. Help. Conversations. Instead, he chose a nursing home brochure and a moving truck." Eric looked down. "I was scared. About your health. About money." I leaned forward. "Then say that. Don't dump your mother like expired leftovers." I reached under the table and pulled out the envelope. "Since we're being honest, let me give you this." He took it cautiously. "What is it?" "Final amendment to my will." His hand shook. He flipped through the pages and went pale. "I'm out?" he whispered. "Yes, and so is Madeline." She gasped. "You can't be serious." "Oh, but I am," I said calmly. "You see, this isn't revenge. This is correction. I've chosen to leave everything to the ones who actually showed up for me when it mattered." Eric stood up. "But I'm your son. And I was your mother," I said, matching his gaze, "until you replaced me with convenience." The room went quiet. Clara finally spoke, voice steady. "You didn't just send her to a home. You made her feel discarded. That doesn't go away with wine and fake apologies." Janine added, "Actions speak louder, and your actions screamed abandonment." Eric's voice cracked. "I thought I was doing the right thing." I stood and walked toward the window. "Maybe you thought that. But now you're going to live with knowing you were wrong." He didn't cry. Not exactly. But the silence he left behind when he and Madeline walked out, that said it all. Back at the table, Clara raised her glass. "To new chapters," she said. I toasted back. "To never being treated like a burden again." You know what they don't tell you about getting older? That freedom, real freedom, often shows up wrapped in heartbreak. It took being thrown aside like last season's handbag to realize just how tightly I'd been clinging to obligations disguised as love. The kind that makes you sacrifice your peace for the sake of keeping the family together. But sometimes, family isn't who you share blood with. It's who shows up when your hands are shaking and your heart is worn thin. And that day, after Eric left my apartment without saying goodbye, I finally felt weightless. 3 months later, I stood on a cruise deck in Santorini. a glass of white wine in one hand and a straw sun hat flopping lazily in the Mediterranean breeze. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't mourning. I was living. Clara and Janine were beside me, dancing to some live band's version of ABBA. I didn't care how ridiculous I looked swaying along. I had earned that ridiculous joy. I had also bought myself a modest cottage in a quiet coastal town, paid for in full with the money from the house Eric thought he'd one day inherit. It came with a wraparound porch, a lemon tree, and nosy neighbors who bring you pie without asking questions. Perfect. Eric texted once, a generic apology that reeked of guilt and inheritance panic. I didn't respond. He tried calling. I blocked the number, because here's the thing. No one wants to admit when you've been wronged by your own flesh and blood. You don't owe them a second chance just because they feel bad. Regret isn't redemption. And forgiveness, well, sometimes it's something you give yourself first. One rainy evening in my new home, I sat by the window with a book, the fireplace humming beside me. A local boy from the farmer's market had just dropped off some flowers, said he liked how I always smiled at his grandma. I thanked him and tucked a bill into his hand. Later, I'd donate to a women's shelter in town, something I'd started doing monthly. A woman who'd been kicked out, discarded, called a burden, now sheltering others from that very fate? Poetic justice, and it tasted sweeter than revenge. So if you're ever told you're too old, too much, or too inconvenient, remember this: you still have chapters left. You still have power, and you can rewrite your ending however you damn well please. As for Eric, he'll be all right, or he won't. Either way, I'm done carrying the guilt of someone else's cowardice. And in case you were wondering, yes, I still watch The Neighborhood from my balcony sometimes. Only now I do it with peace in my chest, a dog in my lap, and a margarita in hand. No panic here, just peace.